Okay, welcome class. This is the end of November. We're starting to actually sketch some stuff and build some stuff in Inventor. So hopefully this is the moment you've all been waiting for after signing up for this class. You're super excited. I am excited to teach this to you. It's a pretty difficult to follow my instructions unless there's a video. So I hope this video will be very helpful to you. You can pause it, you can speed it up, you can slow it down if you need to. So we are starting activity 4.2, model creation. Model creation. So just like normal, put your phone in the caddy if you haven't already, sit in your seat, turn in any missing work, don't forget about the late work submission form, and hopefully your notebooks are ready to be graded, are ready to be picked up after being graded, and you have some graded work to pick up from the table as well, unless you're watching this video at home, in which case you should already have your notebooks. Let's pray. So I've got some announcements. Everything should be graded except for the project. That should come in over the weekend. That's my goal. But all those grades should be in Texas Connect. And then if you're worried about one of those grades, especially the major grades, check Schoology. I should have those rubrics up on Schoology, especially the notebooks and stuff like that. It'll tell you what exactly kinds of points you missed and where. And then the exam, I'm trying to decide when I'll put up the answers to that, and so you'll be able to see those answers and what you missed exactly on Schoology. But it does show the raw score on Texas Connect for the exam. Should show the scaled score. Okay, so those mandatory tutorials are starting today. I've already been contacting parents and calling people in for that. If you have more than 2 missing assignments, that's 3 or more missing assignments. That's too many missing assignments. I have a bunch of those. It's a lot of work on my end to put those in the gradebook. So please get your missing works in and just do your work on time, guys. It's easier that way. I'm trying to lighten the load at home so you have less homework, especially now that we're doing Inventor. A lot of it's going to be in class anyway. But yeah, just work on that. Get all your stuff in on time as best you can. Like I said, welcome to Unit 4. We already started with the user interface, activity 4.1, user interface of Inventor. So you should be familiar with all of the terms I'll be using in this video. Hopefully we can finish 4.2 today in class. I've got 2 practice sketches that I want you to go through in this video, and then 2 more that you're going to do for the assignment. And then you're going to submit the screenshots of those parts up on Schoology. If you go to activity 4.2 assignment in Schoology, it kind of walks you through how to do that on a Google Doc. Hopefully we can submit all of our assignments that way. That way they're time stamped, and it has all of the it has all of the assignments in one place on Schoology, so I can keep up with them a lot better that way. So the first thing we need to do before we jump into building parts, I'm sorry, it's kind of boring, kind of slow, is getting our parts organized, getting our files organized and named nice and correct. So here are all the conventions that I want you to follow. So maybe pause the video, make sure you understand all these, but I'll walk through them a little bit. We want projects, we want underscores instead of points, periods. We want not the default part name, and we want our 3 initials for sure. We want our 3 initials for sure. You can create a practice folder later, but I'm not going to walk you through how to do that yet. But definitely the 3 initials in all of these are files. Whoops. Shoot. There we go. All right. Yeah, right now we're going to change the default projects folder. So anytime you create a project in Inventor, it starts to create that project in the C drive. You don't want it to be in the C drive, because if you ever move your assigned seat, which I definitely will before the year is up, anything you save to the C drive will stay on that local computer. And then I'll likely have to swipe some user profiles from these C drives to clear up some space on them. So that means all of the work you've done on that same computer will be erased. That'll be in your user profile. So you gotta save to your network drive. That way you can access your files on any computer, actually any computer in the whole school, even Chromebooks and stuff like that, if you can get Inventor on them. But You can access these files anywhere. So I'm going to change the default in your applications options so that whenever you create a new project, it'll automatically come up in your network drive. So I'm going to go slow, and of course you can pause the video, speed it up, slow it down if you need to. So the first thing, look in the Tools tab of the ribbon. In my home, I have an instance of Inventor Professional 2018 opened up. Tools tab, Options panel, Application Options here. Bam. Application Options. Yeah. Tools tab, Options panel, Application Options. I clicked that. I should have a dialog box. Now it's going to ask me project folder. You should see something similar to this. User profile, blah, 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 blah. But like I said, I don't want that in the user profile. I want you to browse with that button right there. Minimize this so you can see it a little better. Under this PC, you have all these different drives here, the C drive, and yours might look a little different, but it definitely has your name here. Whatever your username is for logging into the computers, and then an H. Mine has an S because I'm staff, but you have an H right here and your name. So click that, then click Make New Folder. Make New Folder. Now I want you to name this Inventor Projects. Okay, now that you've done that, you have this new folder called Inventor Projects. Very nice. Hit OK. And now you see Projects folder. This is the default Projects folder. It says H. Again, mine says S. Inventor Projects. Beautiful. Let's apply and close. Just like the presentation says, apply and close. Now, anytime you create a project, which is what we're going to do next, it should show up in that folder first. You can always browse to it and skip this step, but I think this makes your life a whole lot easier. So we're going to create a project now. We're going to create a project. In the presentation it says create new part, but first we got to create a new project. Projects up here in the, let me go back. Projects in the Get Started tab of the ribbon, the Launch panel of the Get Started tab of the ribbon. Projects tool. Projects. Now we've got this dialog box that says projects. I want to create a new project. It should say default for all of you guys. New project. New single user project. That's what I want. This should sound familiar from activity 4.1. So like I said, look at that. S drive, Inventor Projects automatically pops up because that's what we changed it to. But I still want to create a new folder every time I create a new project, but that's fine. It automatically creates it based on what I title this thing. Okay, so I want to call it A4_2 model creation. And again, we don't want to use periods. We don't want to use dots. 4.2, we want to say A4_2 model creation. And go ahead and put your initials. My initials are MBH. Go ahead and put your initials MB. Whatever your initials are, they might be MB something or MBH. I don't know if that's true. Let me know. That'd be fun. So you can see it creates a folder and a project, and you can see this project file is H/Inventor Project /A4.2 model creation MBH /A4.2 model creation MBH.IPJ. That IPJ is the file extension for your project. Okay, so you can hit next. It just comes up with this logical name stuff. We're not going to worry about that. Then hit finish. So the project path you entered does not exist. That's because we created a new directory, a new file. I'm sorry, a new folder. So yes, we do want to create that folder. Okay, and now we're good. We're in the correct project. If you had some other parts, other files that you were working on before that were showing up in your recent documents, they're not going to show up anymore because you're opening a new project. This is me switching between active projects here. I want to open this active project that we just created. Okay, now we can create a part. You can either click this button right here, it'll pop up a new part automatically. You can select this new command from the Get Started tab. You can also do Control-N like it's popping up in the tooltip. File new does the same thing. Then it gives you a list of different files, file types you can create. So there are lots of ways of doing the same thing. I like making sure that I have this dialog box pop up. This dialog box lets you select some nice things, including, watch this, metric you can select millimeters by default, which is what you're going to have to use to do the second sketch or the second model of today's activity. So we just want the standard inches IPT, and then you hit create. So we created a part. We created a part, and now we're in the part file. Ooh la la, it should look beautiful, unless of course you've changed some of the display settings, in which case it looks ugly. All right, now anytime you create a new part or a new assembly or anything, I really recommend saving immediately. So sometimes if you can hit Control S, it might not open up the save dialog box. So just make sure you click on the graphics window, and then you can Control S, and that should pop up this way. So I want you to use the same kind of naming convention, A4_2. And you can actually call this one lecture. Actually, let's call it additive, because this is our additive part. And then make sure we're doing MBH, or your initials preferably. So that'll be a .ipt because it is a Inventor part. So we are in the right folder. We're connected to the right project. So we're ready to hit save. Save, and now this is what we're called. Awesome. Now, before we jump into modeling itself, I want to talk to you about the principles of modeling. There are a couple of different ways to represent a model, and this is actually the model we're going to be building a couple of different times. There's a wireframe model and a solid model. Now, try to think about the advantages of each of those. Yeah, with the solid model, you can see the surface is a lot better. It looks more realistic. But then with the wireframe model, you've got you can see everything behind it. You can see the hidden lines, so to speak. So what I really want to talk about, though, is the additive and subtractive methods of building. Just like with sketching, there are additive and subtractive methods of modeling and manufacturing in the real world. So if you look down here at the blue words, welding, gluing, mechanical fastening, and joinery are all different ways of mechanically joining or additively building something, manufacturing something. And then we can do that too with 3D modeling. We can create a section of a part and then build off of it. With subtractive, let me jump down here a little bit in the presentation. Milling, drilling, turning, grinding. There are lots of other ways of cutting material out. We can do the same thing with modeling. We start with a big block and then cut things out off of it. So think about that box method that we started with. In sketching, try to think about that, if that is additive or subtractive, if that is the additive or subtractive method. So in additive modeling, there are several different methods. Anytime you see, kind of a big continuous block and then some more attached to it, you can additively build that thing. So we can start, we can do method 1 by starting with this back face and then adding the front cube to it. We can do method 2, starting with the bottom face, the bottom step, so to speak, and then adding in that second step on top of it. Or we could do block by block. And if you're familiar with Inventor, I challenge you to try this method. Maybe even model these linking cubes as parts and then put them all together as an assembly. That'll be a good challenge for you if you're kind of bored with this section. So we are going to do option 1, starting with this back block and then adding in that front block to it. So I've left up this sketch down here in this bottom left corner for you. Hopefully that'll help. So before we build anything in 3D, we have to start with the 2D sketch. That's what we're doing. We're sketching this image down here. So you could either click this in the 3D model tab, the sketch panel of the ribbon, start 2D sketch here, or the hotkey S. You can see that in the tooltip here as I hover over it. So right here, and typically we start in the XY plane, especially since our object looks the way it does with the front. You can see on the view cube, the front faces us like that, the right typically how we do it, and the top goes up. So we want to start in the back, towards the back face. So we click on this XY plane to sketch there. So like I said, this little message under my mouse cursor says select plane or create sketch, or select plane to create sketch or an or an existing sketch to edit. So it helps us. It tells us what we need to do in the next step in this command. It might tell you that up down here in the status bar at the very bottom, but mine just says for help, press F1, and then it has my my status tip under my cursor. But anyway, we want to select the XY plane. Here we go. Now we're inside the sketch. You can tell that we're inside a sketch by these green highlights. That means that's called a contextual menu. That means we're inside a sketch. We can't do anything with 3D objects. We can only sketch until we select this button right here, Finish Sketch. It says exits the active environment and returns to the general working environment. That's great. Oh, look, a save reminder. Pretty nice. Click here to save. Let's see, you cannot save in sketch mode. Okay, good to know. So just so you know, you need to be saving your parts. I've been making this video for a long time, so I think I've got my save reminders set up for 30 minutes, so you can tell how long I've been making this video. But anyway, after I exit the sketch, I'll save it again. I haven't added anything yet. So here we go. We can build this sketch, with a number of different ways. I'm going to let you think about how you would want to build it. So if you've given it some thought, I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite ways. So I can start with this rectangle here. This rectangle tool gives you a 2-point rectangle by default. That's what I want. And you can see any of these sketching tools really, whenever you hover, whenever you move your mouse cursor, it's got a little yellow dot trailing me. But when I go close to a line, it snaps to that line or the axis, and then when I go to the center, it snaps to that, and it becomes a green point. That's what you want. You want that green point, and you see there's a little symbol behind the X coordinate. That's a constraint. That constraint means that I'm actually sketching on that point. It's a constraint. If I wanted to move my sketch later, I cannot because it's stuck to that point. So I could make this box. You can type in the coordinates as you are going, but you don't have to. You could just type in, you could just click somewhere and then see this here. And in fact, that's what I'm going to do. I got this rectangle, and then I can create another rectangle starting on that point over here. So once again, I don't have all of the dimensions on here. I just have some general idea of what it's looking like here. So I can exit the rectangle tool by hitting escape, or right click and then cancel there. So I can cancel out of that command and pan over, of course. Now to make that shape, I want to actually trim. This is the trim tool under modify, in the modify panel. Trim that little bit off right there, kabam. And now it's good. Then I exit that command with escape. So you can see these lines in my sketch have a couple of different colors. I have a purple line and I have a green line. The purple, you'll notice if you try to click and drag, it does not move, but the green lines do. The green lines can move because I haven't dimensioned them. I haven't added constraints, so they're free. They're unconstrained. They're free to move wherever I want to move them. So as long as I got the general idea here, I can dimension. That's a type of constraint. I can add dimensions to these lines. I can actually dimension this line, 1.5, enter. Oh, it got too big, so I can zoom out and pan. And this guy, 1.5, enter. Uh-oh, it went past. So now my little thing looks weird. If I added the 0.75 here, it's wrong. I don't want it to be like that. Control Z, as always undo. Control Z. So I'm out of the dimension tool. Make sure you're out of the dimension tool before you do something like this. Click and drag that guy over. So now it looks nice the way you wanted it to. And you can click and drag because it's green. I can add this dimension as 0.75. I can add this dimension here as 0.75, and now my entire object turned into purple. Let me just make sure I'm actually doing the dimensions right. Yeah, 1.5, 1.5, 7.5, 7.5. Okay, so now I'm done. I can finish sketch, and now I'm ready to extrude. Let me see if it'll work. Okay, great, it'll work. Let me go back to my sketch. If I want to go back to my sketch, I can always double click right here in the browser. I could right click on this click on it first, and then right click and edit sketch right here. Make sure if you want to change the sketch, you edit the sketch. Don't add things to a separate sketch. Make sure you're combining your sketches, otherwise your part might not work. So there's my sketch there. I actually want to delete all of this junk, and I'll show you a different method. So I can click, as long as I'm not using any tool currently, I can click on all these dimensions, delete them. I can click on the lines and delete them. So that's much better, I think, than Control Z. Control Z is, I think, the coward's way out. You can use it, of course, sometimes. But with this line tool, I can click and drag and watch. Whenever my line snaps to that grid, I got another symbol there. That's the vertical constraint. So once again, I can go somewhere near 1.5, or I can just click near. I can actually type it in 1.5 as I'm going. 1.5, enter, and now I've got another thing going here. I want to do 0.75 and make sure I'm at 90 degrees, enter. Make sure I'm at 90 degrees, 0.75, enter, and then down here, I'm going to have to dimension that later because I didn't dimension the 1.5 over there. But if you did, that's fine. Just make sure you snap to the line there. And then when you close the geometry, make sure you get that green point. If you don't get that green point, that means you don't have a closed geometry. Okay, here's one more teaching point here. I can dimension this line like that by clicking that, or in my dimension tool, I can actually dimension the distance between two lines. All I did was click that line and then click that line. Now I'm dimensioning the distance between them. And there we go. I want that to be 1.5. So there are lots of ways you can do this, but make sure you've got a closed dimension by getting closed geometry by getting all of your purple lines like this. So here's my sketch. Now the next thing I want to do is extrude it. Now I'm in the 3D model tab, the create panel, extrude, or hotkey E. Bam, and it automatically selected this geometry to extrude. That's great. We want this to be 0.75. We want it to be 0.75. So we've popped that out some right there. Okay, all we need to do now is add in this little block in the front. So I want to create another 2D sketch, and it's asking me, oh look, it's down here in my status bar down there. Select plane to create sketch on. I want to create a sketch on this front plane. Here we go. Now that I'm in here, pretty easy, I can use that rectangle tool. That's my recommendation. Here we go. I'm on that point there. And now instead of clicking and dimensioning, once again, you can do it either way. You can click your general shape and then dimension afterwards, or you can just hit 0.75, tab over to that next dimension, 0.75. Bam! It's already fully dimensioned and everything for you. Finish sketch. And now I can extrude that boy out, and look, it's already suggesting that I do it by 0.75. There we go, we're good. Let's Control S to save. It should be the same name. Now, that thing is done. Now I want to demonstrate how to do it with the subtractive method. So I can just create a new standard IPT part, create, and once again, save as soon as you can. I want to name it the same thing except change additive to subtractive. Okay, so once again, start with 2D sketch, start in the XY plane, and this time, let me pull this up. This time, we're not doing the additive method. We are doing the subtractive method. So we can start with this big box and subtract away the pieces. You can see that first piece that kind of looks like a gun, then that next piece that looks like a block up in the top. Let's see, the back right top corner. So we start with this big rectangle. Let's make it 2.25 in width, 1.5 in height, 1.5 in depth, extruded at. We start with a rectangle. I think that's the easiest since we're doing a big box. 2.25 by 1.5. It's okay if it goes off your screen. You can always just zoom out and pan. I'm fully dimensioned there. Finish sketch. Zoom out and pan. Or you could always hit the home key. Oh yeah, home. Extrude by 1.5. Boom. Now I want to cut away a piece from this. See if you can do it. It's a little bit of a challenge. See if you can do it without the video. Okay, if you've tried and you've given up hope. Let me walk you through it. So I can start with 2D sketch, and I want to do it on this plane right here. So here's the trick. Let me pull up my Google Slides so I can show you exactly what we're looking at here. Yeah, we want to cut away. We want to cut away everything except that little block in the bottom left front corner. Everything except that little block we want to cut away 0.75 inches. Not there. We just want to cut away that 0.75 inches there. So let me minimize that. I want to create, I'm going to use a rectangle here. It's 0.75, 0.75. But if I try to finish sketch and try to extrude that, it's only going to select that. It won't select everything but that. That's because in my sketch, I don't have these lines outlining this box. I haven't created those lines. So I can go back into my sketch. Once again, I can edit sketch over here or edit it in the actual graphics menu. I'm sorry, the graphics window. Then I can draw lines all the way around. So green dot, green dot, green dot, green dot, green dot. And now I believe it should work. Extrude, yeah, and now when you hit extrude, it gives you a couple of options here. It gives you a couple of options. You want to select this option, and I'll show you in just a sec, but first I want to edit this sketch and show you another way. Let me go in and delete my lines. Delete my lines, and you'll see some of them start to turn green. Delete my lines. And if you're unsure what lines you actually have, hover over the sketch in the browser. And everything that turns white when you hover over the sketch is actually what you have in your sketch. So here's a trick. I can create another rectangle over the entire thing. Green dot to green dot. And then I created all those lines. It doesn't matter that you have two lines right here, duplicate lines under here and here. It's fine. You still have, whenever you draw that, like draw it on a piece of paper, and you'll see you have three shapes. This big one, this small box, and then this gun shape. So I select the gun shape thing, and now it's extruding towards me, towards the front. I don't want that to happen. I want to change the direction. Direction 2, and now it's cutting away. Sometimes it might not select cut by default. You obviously don't want to join. That creates, let's see, should hover over and say join. You don't want to join. That creates more material. You want to cut material away when you're going the wrong direction. So again, that's only 0.75, only halfway. Bam! Now see if you can finish it. Okay, let me show you. I want to create a 0.75 by 0.75 square here and cut that away. Start 2D sketch, sketch on this plane, zoom in here, rectangle, starting on this corner, 0.75, tab 0.75, enter. That's what I want. I want to extrude, and I want to extrude backwards, which means cut. Okay, okay, and now I am all the way done. Save. That's my subtractive method. If I go home, and if I go home on my additive method, they should be exactly identical, except for, you can see when I tab over to these different files, the only difference is this browser. I have 3 sketches there, and over here I only have 2. So maybe the first one was a little bit easier. I only started with 1 sketch. I can hover over this 1 sketch, and then I extruded it, and then I added that other sketch. And this one I had to do 3 different things. Start with the big sketch, the big extrusion, then cut away that little thing, and then cut away this little thing. So you can see the efficiency based on the browser. So you guys can start on 4.2 now that you're done with the video lecture. Make sure when you take a screenshot, you grab your part and move it all the way over. You expand all of these points on your browser. Then you can hit Windows key, snip. With the snipping tool, I just hit Control N for new. Snip all of this. I want you to give me your part and the part browser. And then you can save those and put them into the Google Docs.